more, right? Because I think at the end of the day, Web3 is here to stay. I'm 100% Web3 is here to stay. If not, I would cut my dick off, right? I think this is definitely here to stay. 1, 2, 3, 4.
GM, everybody. Welcome to the GM show. And I'm so excited to be here. If you don't know the show, you should know the ABCs, which is the Asia focused, builder friendly, and cool vibes, only powered by Memeland, home of Captain's Potatoes Stayland. You're the real MVP. My name is Karen, and I'm your co-host as well as head of social for Memeland. Hello, Casey.
Hey, Karen. Everybody know. How's everyone doing? I'm Casey, Web3 builder, investor, and you know that Karen and I love to talk to founders and creators, and we're very excited to be able to bring you this show to you live every week from Hong Kong, where we chat to the most exciting builders in the Web3 space. And, I was just watching our intro again and watching Ray with the pillow, and it's almost been a year when that iconic moment happened with the pillow.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to repeat this year, but definitely something exciting happening towards the end of the year. So many events. If you're excited to be here, show off some emoji love on X, YouTube, and Twitch, where we're broadcasting live right now.
Awesome. All right, before we begin the show, let's hear a quick word from our chairman.
What is discussed on the GM show is not investment advice. We may or may not have ownership interests in the projects we are talking about, but this is not investment advice in any way, shape, or form. And this is not Sir David Attenborough.
Okay, so this just in, preparing for September. There's still a month to go, but guess what? There's a news coming out from Token 2049. They are hosting the world's largest Web3 conference, if you didn't know about that. And the best part is the party after 2049 will be hosted at the Sky Park observation deck of Singapore's most iconic Marina Bay Sands, the biggest event ever. And it's going to be, well, they say it's the biggest pre-Formula One party on the 20th. So who's going to be there on the week of that whole weekend is going to be amazing. They have this Copenhagen-based experimental pop trio, Who Made Who, is going to headline the event. And there's going to be a South African DJ and producer, Decabo. It's going to be crazy.
Wow. And you know how crazy it's going to be? There's going to be 2,000 guests at this thing. Can they put 2,000 people up there on that Sky Park thing? I hope so. Anyways, there's going to be, obviously, at any crypto event, there's going to be a premium open bar and boasting a multi-sensory music experience. The tickets were sold out in minutes last year, and with demand expected to surpass, of course, this year. People, no matter what the market's doing, people want to party, right? Especially when they're a token. So a limited number of tickets are sold at this site called Resident Advisor, ra.co, and they're on sale right now. And if you miss them for any reason, they're going to be dropping additional tickets on the 26th of August and the 12th of September. So get your tickets, get ready for Token 2049. Karen and I have decided we'll broadcast live from the show floor on that day. So if you've never been there or you can't make it, we're going to do a show where we're not going to interview people. We're just going to walk around and see what's going on and see if there's any friends of the show have been on the pod before. We'll talk to them and maybe show you a little bit of what Singapore looks like. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, probably show you the food or something. If
that was last year's highlight, was finding the food. Yes, then people will definitely be into that.
Probably just gonna be us eating live or something like that if we don't find anybody. But let's see.
Amazing.
It's gonna be the biggest event for sure.
Biggest event, our biggest event, Asia's biggest event. So I think everybody will be there. We were last year. I always tell people how surprised I was that we saw so many of our guests from the U.S. and Europe there in Singapore, speaking on stage or at their own private events and things like that. It was just huge. Pudgy was there, Azuki was there, and of course, Memeland had a big party. Well, I think we're going to do a big party again this year for holders, right?
Yes, on the 17th. So more info to come, but that's
to come.
It's going to be amazing like last year.
Okay, awesome. All right, so let's get to the show. We have a very special guest today. It's somebody I've known for a while, and I think he's doing some amazing stuff. So I'm very excited to have him on the show. His company is called Open Campus. It is a Web3 foundation focused on innovating the $5 trillion education industry. They launched through the collaborative efforts of Animoca and Binance Launchpad. They operate with its own governance token called EDU, and they're launching a dApp ecosystem that reimagines what learn to earn means. The platform links learning experiences with earning opportunities, making every step of the journey trackable on the blockchain. They have an accelerator program, and they've successfully incubated 60 companies, impacting over 20 million learners by providing crucial resources and support to foster growth and innovation. They have the EDU chain, and the chain is launching on L3 with Arbitrum and deployed a 150 million EDU rewards program, dedicated billing infrastructure for students and educators. What? No degens? That's weird. Let's find out why that's not in there. They have an active in enhancing skills and fostering community engagement through partnerships with notable entities like ApeCoin DAO and Sandbox DAO. Very interesting. And recently, they've established a $10 million fund aimed at supporting AI-driven education projects. A notable investment includes our friends at Kip Protocol. If you recall, we sat down with the founder there on episode 57, which you can find on X or on YouTube for a playback on what Kip is all about. But they're focusing on integrating blockchain technology in academic settings for professors and universities. All right, Karen, who is our guest today?
Yeah, he is the co-founder and CEO of New Campus, a modern business school designed to support the next generation of leaders in Southeast Asia. Under his leadership, New Campus has collaborated with 500 innovative tech companies, impacting over 130,000 managers across the region. He also serves as a partner and council member at Open Campus, a Web3 foundation where he played a pivotal role in establishing an accelerator that has supported over 60 founders. Wow. We love supporting founders, reaching more than 20 million learners collectively. Outside of work, he's passionate about maintaining balance through yoga. It's very zen. We'll talk about his interest later.
Oh, yeah.
Engaging with Web3 space and writing for publications like Forbes and Entrepreneur. Please welcome to the show co-founder and CEO of New Campus, Will Fan. Hello, GM.
GM, thanks for having me. How are we going, guys?
Very, very good. Good to have you. Good to see you. Good to have another fellow Hong Kong people coming onto our show.
Yeah, I can't believe it's been a year since the pillow sitch, and so good to see that we're just constantly building and hustling. And Casey, good to see you again, buddy. How are we doing?
Good. Okay, first of all, let me just clear this up because I'm very confused as well, and I just read it and I don't know the difference. There's New Campus and Open Campus, right? Can you explain what is the difference between the two names?
Yeah, so it's actually a very similar situation with 9gag and Memeland. So New Campus is an online university that I've been running for almost a decade now. Wow. So we really serve Asian leaders in Southeast Asia, really thinking about what that next generation looks like. And Open Campus is an online Web3 foundation. So that's done in collab with Animoca, with Gems, with TinyTap, and Binance Launchpad. So see it as a Web3 arm, and then the Web2 business line, the university's new campus.
Got it. Makes sense now. Okay. All right. So if you know what happens on the GM show, we ask the same 15 questions to each week's guest to get some insight into their day-to-day life, to see what inspires them and what lessons they can pass on to the next generation building in Web3. So Karen, what is the first question?
Yes, let's go. What's the one app you have on your home screen that not many people do?
So I'm a OCD working from home, and apart from your usual social apps, your work apps, my favorite app is an AI robo cleaner EcoVac. So every time I'm heading out of the house for the gym or yoga, I love kind of watching my little robot go around the house and picking and choosing. So EcoVac, electronic cleaning, the go-to place.
Wow.
Awesome.
And you can watch it on your phone?
Yeah, and that's what I do when I'm on the bus or on the train. It's like,
Wow.
oh, which corner are you going by? And you're doing a double take there.
Do you have any
using-
animals? Do you have any pets?
No.
Okay.
But
So this is your
yeah, I
robot
think it'll be
pet. You're like
helpful.
watching.
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
watch my cat walk around the house if I couldn't do that.
Your digital pet.
Yeah. It's your digital pet. Okay. Number 2 question. What is something that has greatly influenced your life? It could be a movie, a book, a person, a manga, something like that.
My late sister. So she, Kat, she was 4 years my senior. We grew up in very humble beginnings, and I learned so much from her in terms of grit and being a good person. And it's almost going to her 3rd year of passing now. So I think a lot about her every day, and obviously she drives a lot of the work that I do. Very important person to me.
Very sweet. Well, you're talking to a lot of investors throughout the years. What is the best investment that you've ever made? Is it your time, your money, your energy, and what were the returns?
I was going to say Memeland, but we can talk about that a bit later.
What day is it today?
But I think a big part of my team's success is really building long-term relationships. So I'm going to my 10th year in business now, and what's been incredible is just seeing the team ride with me for almost a decade, partners ride with me for almost a decade. Even me falling into that open campus opportunity, the lead behind it, Jonah, he was actually one of our teachers in 2014. So I think the biggest bet we've made is building long-term relationships, and you don't actually see that until you're, in my case, mid-30s, starting to think about the next 5, 10, 50 years in meeting good people and working with them.
Okay, great. Who is someone? Okay, well, I guess the question is kind of also but who is someone that inspires you? Maybe another business person, maybe a celebrity, maybe an athlete, somebody who inspires you, and why?
I wanted to, give a shout out to Ray. He's actually been a very big personal driver for me. We actually talk quite a bit, not about work, about business, but most people actually don't know. He actually is my grief coach. So when Kat passed, we actually talked a lot about life outside of work and what meaning is and finding balance. And there were many times where he has actually helped and saved my company. We can talk about that another day, but I look up to not only his business ethics in building a brand for almost 15 years and obviously now where he is. So I think a lot about him, and again, feel very privileged to be meeting folks on his team and talking about our work together.
Okay, great. We're gonna have to text him that. He doesn't watch the show, so we're gonna let him know that you said that.
Great guy. Well, Ray is actually, outside of work, he's also a friend to a lot of people. So that's good to hear. Yeah. So here's the difficult question. Number 1 is, what is the one conventional wisdom that you disagree with, especially coming from an Asian household? I'm sure there's a lot.
Oh, you have your conventional plays like don't take risks and don't eat too much white rice. But maybe the closest one is never start a business with your life partner. So my partner, Faye, she's also my co-founder. We actually met each other almost 11 and a half years ago. We actually worked together before starting a business and then getting together. But yeah, she's been an incredible driving force with the company, with the brand, and, obviously a lot of life experience along the way. And, actually the closest comparable that I think about are Asian families, Asian parents that start like news agencies and butcheries together. Like, how do they hustle for 30, 40, 50 years? And yeah, I think it's worked out quite well. I think our marriage is still going strong. And yeah, for those thinking about starting something with their SO, dive right in. You never know.
Okay.
That's great to hear.
Yeah. Doesn't work for everybody for sure, but okay. Let's take a look at the next one. What is one piece of advice you would give to a first-time founder, somebody who's starting in Web3 right now, 2024, and something that you've learned along the way you'd love to pass on?
So there's a very big difference that I've seen with investing in Web3 and Web2 founders. I think for Web2 founders, find easier problems that you can quickly learn and dissolve if need be. You don't become successful overnight unless you're mecca lucky. And so, when I kind of look back at education as a sector, it's probably one of the hardest industries to crack. And, why it's taken us so long to really get it right is because of just constantly being baptized by fire. So I think for a first-time founder, find something simple, learn the ropes, get your foot in the door, build those relationships. I think for Web3 founders, take a long-term view. I've seen so many founders walk away because of quote unquote greed. And it's essentially burnt their reputation overnight. So yeah, I'd like to hope that next generation of builder really thinks about their reputation long-term, because the cycles are going to come and go, but your reputation needs to be here to stay.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, especially as a small circle as well. Like, I feel like if you burn your bridges, like that's not a good start. What is the worst piece of advice you ever received? Like, talking to a lot of people in the industry for sure. Like, do they give you some of these advice that you're like, you can't forget about it?
I think we started on the investment, the fundraising bandwagon, 8 years in the running. And with the whole education financing market imploding, that was really a shock to the system, but also a reflection on how do I want to move forward with building a company and building a brand and build a culture with the team. I think the space that we operate in collectively is quite uncharted. So most of the time it comes to intuition and pattern recognition. So I like to think, it's really taking every advice with a grain of salt, especially when investors haven't gone through what you're going through. But it's also good data points. So yeah, like I think it's so important for investors now to understand that if they're not in the driving seat, it's important to support the founder emotionally, financially, a combination of both. But most of the time, founders actually should have the best ideas and decisions in place. So I think that was actually a very big gear switch for me in terms of taking ownership and control of our own destiny, and not too reliant on getting that feedback whiplash that a lot of first-time founders get.
Yeah, for sure.
Good. All right, now we're going to get into questions about your Web3 background. You've come from the Web2 world. So how did you get into Web3? Who onboarded you? Who gave you that first sweet smell of crypto that you're like, this is delicious, I want more?
Oh, yeah, that delicious nectar. Yeah, I entered the space 3.5 years ago through NFTs, and it was a creative outlet. I was actually doing a lot of sketching and illustrating just to understand the tech and make a bit of side hustle as well. But my first NFT was A World of Women, and second was Lazy Lion, and I think I just got completely hooked with the internet culture that I grew up with. And yeah, I ended up starting a small group of, WhatsApp friends. It's called Board Asian Boat Club. And actually, that's where I met Ray as well. So a really small group that's kind of blown up to 88 Asian business leaders in Web3. We're still pretty boomer, but it's a good chance for us to, again, talk about business, talk about the space, and obviously learn together as the market moves.
But how did you choose those two specific NFTs? Did you choose them because somebody recommended to you, or you just did your own research and just said, I want to get this? I mean, who's onboarding you? Are you reading about this and saying, I'm just going to buy some ETH and buy an NFT, or did somebody like, hey, you got to check this out? Well, this is something exciting.
I wish I'd come earlier. That's what she said. But in 2015, when I came to Singapore from Australia, there was a Bitcoin machine that you would put in your debit card, and for $200 or $250, you get one Bitcoin. I ended up spending that on, hotel. But yeah, for the WoW and the Lazy Lions purchase, it was actually from my friend, Lily Wu. And she was just like, hey, I bought this thing called Cool Cats. WoW is pretty, dope. Why don't you guys, jump on? And I think after that, it was just getting sucked into, Twitter economy, into Discord economy, which was still very young in Asia. I'm not sure if you guys remember, but, it was all US hours. And I think that was really starting to become the renaissance of Asia being the hub for building Web3. So yeah, that was really cool. A lot of fun to be part of.
Yeah, the good old days of NFT just started. But what did you learn from it? Like when you own those two, like, do you still own it though?
Yeah, WoW is still sitting very sadly in my folder. The Lazy Lion, sold that one off. But yeah, it actually became a big part of my Twitter identity for a time. And I think it was, before Twitter had their hexagonal PFPs and the framing. And I think, because they were doing that whole roaring campaign with Lazy Lions, that was pretty interesting in terms of guerrilla-based marketing. You had the vampires, you had, pudgy penguins at 0.4, and you just didn't know what you didn't know, right? So it was a good chance for me to better understand the scene and learn a bit about what other builders were doing outside of Web 2. And again, being in the education space, it was still very traditional. So this was a good chance to understand what a hyper growth industry was moving.
Right. Okay, and then so the next question, the last part of this section is, what is the one misconception of Web3 you want to change? This is something that usually you as a founder will see in the media a lot, or have been asked by interviews by the media. And it's something that always grates on you because you're just like, I can't answer the same question over and over again, or you see it otherwise. You're like, I hate how this is always taken. The number one thing everyone says this, so I'm going to say, you don't have to say this one, but everybody says that they want to change it. It's not a scam, right? That's the number one thing. Everybody thinks this world is full of scammers. So what's the next misconception that you might think that you'd like to change?
I think there's a double-edged sword with crypto / Web3 being so fast-paced with attention economy that it's so hard to think long-term. And so when I look at the founders that we've backed or the companies I've personally invested in, it's really thinking about a long-term view. In education, it's probably the slowest industry alongside healthcare. And so now that I'm in my 10th year in building business, I do think a lot about how may we educate founders to think 10, 15, 20 years to change. And so one misconception is less from external looking in, but more so inward looking out. And so you see all these brands, hopefully some of them will stay for the long term, but it's so important to have a very long-term perspective on relationships, on brand, on financing, on treasury management. These things are so key for the entire industry to be sustainable over time.
Yeah. Great.
Okay, well, let's get into the business side. The serious stuff starts now. So what are you building right now? We saw there's a hackathon thing going on. Maybe you can talk about that as well.
Yeah, so maybe I can talk specifically about Open Campus.
Yeah.
So Open Campus has been such a joy the past 18 months working on it. We are really looking at building essentially the education sector for Web3. There's a few key pillars that we're supporting. One is AI and content. So our friends at KIP, we recently launched a OCP for 10 million to invest into AI initiatives. So how may we onboard the next generation of teachers, educators, professors on chain? The second is financing. So with the education financing dip in Web 2, there's huge opportunity for us to disrupt, support, and enable learners, companies, a combination of both to succeed. So we've backed over 60 companies, impacting over 20 million learners. So that's been, obviously a big part of our Trojan horse to onboard learners into Web3. The third part, which I'm so excited for, is the layer 3 that we're building. So with all these companies, with all these learning products, we see an opportunity to actually build them on chain, whether it's learner credentials, whether it's microfinancing, whether if it's enabling creators to put their courses, programs on chain. And so that's a big part of our focus right now. How do you kind of bridge the existing education process flows with the innovation of crypto financing and crypto tech?
Yeah, I like how when we talk to Kip, he's talking about like KnowledgeFi, but like I think for people that don't really understand that, like maybe you can help us break it down. Like how do you learn to earn? Like what exactly that goes down to the experience?
So maybe from the teacher's side, we're definitely seeing a revolution of what makes an educator. And so if you think about 40, 50 years ago, it's, teachers and professors sitting in universities. But now, as careers shift, as markets evolve, the nature of what a creator or an educator is changing. And even, nowadays, how we learn, on Twitter, on Instagram, on other tools, you don't need to be an adjunct. You don't need to be a certified coach to, share your knowledge and share your wisdom. And so, we're really trying to find that balance between that new age of educator that is trying to build his or her or their brand, but also with the technology that allows you to celebrate, enable, finance their growth. And so, there's a few different sectors that we're looking at, all the way from K-12 to workforce upskilling. And, in the case of KIP right now, they're seeing this new evolution of professors that want to look at new technologies in AI and Web3. And so with this foundation, with this fund, it's enabling them to experiment and build and obviously co-build with us over time.
Yeah, good. Okay, so here's the question I want to ask. So you've had a 10-year career already in a new campus doing Web2 training and education. What is the allure? I guess I know the answer to this, but I want you to tell me, what is the allure of doing the Web3 element? Why did you start this section of it, besides talking to Ray and Yat and all the other Web3 people in Hong Kong? There must be something else that you're seeing that proves, or not proves, but rather excites you about doing this in this specific, using this new technology to do this.
I think for us, it really comes down to the people. With New Campus, we started off serving hyper growth industries. So think about your Lala Moves, your Carousels, your Grabs of the world. During their bull run, they were doubling, tripling, 5xing their team overnight. Mm-hmm. And so when we looked at markets like Indonesia, like Vietnam, like Philippines, why New Campus really accelerated was supporting their growth from 200 to 500 to 1,000 to employees. And so we actually see a similar energy shift with Web3 companies right now. We might have started off a few years back with scammy projects, or majority of the projects were deemed scam, but now we're seeing real companies starting to be built. And so the work with ApeCoin DAO right now, for example, is we're really trying to figure out what leadership and org structure looks like. And so as a university or challenger university that is serving this next generation of leader, next generation of community, I think that's very meaningful for us to solve education and upskilling problems. I think another thing that's pretty exciting is obviously the financing. So, in the old world where we would be raising venture capital, you would still need to go to, LPs that were still traditional in education financing. But in the case of Web3, you can now tap into young builders like Memeland, like Pudgy, like and that, have a lot more in the know and cultural relevance with the work that we're doing. So yeah, it's really a hybrid of both that's getting me there. But at the end of the day, we're still learning on how to move forward.
Yeah. Karen, what kind of training do you have at 9gag? How do they teach you how to do the memes when you join the company?
It's born with it. You born with it. It's in your
They
DNA.
test you, right? They test how
We
many you recognize and how many can you make in the next 10 minutes.
We do a blood test to see how many memes are in your bloodstream. No, but like I think there's a content sense, right? Like of course, like there's a training at work too, but like also like when you see feedback from people, and then you learn more about like what to expect and what to inspire. Here is I think that this one is a good question. I like when you're building this whole thing, like coming from Web 2 to Web 3, what's the one lesson you learned so far? Is it like working with your partner? Is it like starting in Web 3? Like what's the one thing that hits you?
So my team, we've gone through many cycles in Web 2. So we're almost in PTSD wartime mode every week. And I kind of see, that being a pretty natural transition into Web3, especially when you're dealing with FUD, when you're dealing with chaos, when you're dealing with the turbulence of the market. What I didn't expect is, obviously needing to shut that out and just focus on building over time. And so that's definitely a new skill that we think a lot about, and something that I coach founders and, teams that we back to think a lot about, because at the end of the day, cycles will come and go. There'll be bears and troughs. There'll be, picks and shovels that we play with. But it's being able to shut out the noise of the market. Yes, it's important to be able to catch tempos and understand metas, and, whether or not beams in your bloodstream or not, it's, staying up to date with what's happening. But yeah, it's so important for you to be able to shut off what's happening outside and just focus and build. And that's where I really start to see founders I, want to double down on, that they're able to balance the chaos of, that wartime mode, but really channel the energy into the right type of stuff that they're working on.
Did Ray give you any good advice? Sorry, Karen, go ahead.
Is bear the best time to start learning? Because you're not focusing in the market now. You just shift your focus to get better stuff for yourself. Have invest on yourself.
Yeah, I think there's quite interesting shift for us, because now we're obviously dealing with sizable treasuries, which is very different to our old world in Web 2. Where you're kind of just building a business. So we think a lot about treasury management and how do you extend run rate? How do you, build sustenance in a DAO? And so, I think you asked your question earlier, Casey, around, what does Ray's advice think? And, one big thing that I do respect being a, holder myself is ultimately thinking long-term around, managing capital. And most of the time, companies, projects, DAOs don't do that well, which is why we've come in as the adults to kind of build up that infrastructure, that learning, to help them move forward. So short answer, I think it's so important to think long term, and a big part of it is how do you spend your energy and spend your time and money.
How many people do you have in your team right now?
So at New Campus, we have shy of 45.
Okay.
Most of us are coaches, instructors, learning experience designers. For the Web3 side at Open Campus, it's actually a collective of team members. So you have the New Campus guys, you have the Animoca guys, you have a few other education partners involved too. But we see it as a collective of builders with both education and Web3 expertise. And so far we're still here. So I think we're doing okay.
And this is not a question on the list, but I'm kind of want to throw you in the hot seat here. What is the best way to get people in Asia who are just used to iPhones and MacBooks and paying subscriptions with fiat. What's the best way to get them to Web3? Do you think all these conferences that are coming to town are the solution? I'm going to say no, because I never see any normal people at these events. Is it going to some sort of class to learn? I know some people in Hong Kong are teaching how to, Web3 stuff. Or is it up to the business owner to train people like that, to train them how to use Microsoft Excel? What's your take on that?
So I think there's a few layers to this. One is, how do you get them Web3 ready, setting up a wallet, purchasing their first Sol or ETH. But I think for our case, it is really onboarding them into the technology. So with the 60 portfolio companies, soon 100 by the end of the year, by early next year, we're really looking at tackling the next 20 plus million learners that collectively these companies house. And so you have teams with 1 million learners in Indonesia or 500,000 learners in Philippines, and they're actually already using apps and tools that our companies are co-building with us that allows them to seamlessly onboard, whether it's creating a learner credential or creating a wallet for the first time. I do think it's very important not to shoehorn the experience, and we think a lot about that learning onboarding experience, so it doesn't feel like they're being onboarded for the first time. So I do think, similarly to how StreamYard or Zoom became quite seamless for people to work, it should be the same approach when it comes to onboarding learners, especially when you're dealing with not non-sophisticated Web3 degens. I think we are naturally more curious in that bell curve, but for a majority of the market, most of the time, they don't even know what the hell we're doing in this small bubble.
All right, good.
Okay. Casey, you have an important question to ask?
Oh, I'm sorry. I keep asking the questions. I forgot I was the next one as well. All right. The next question is the important question. What is the alpha? Let's play it. Okay. Everybody has some sort of alpha going on, whether it's a token drop, a new collab, things like that. What is happening in your company?
So we just launched the Open Campus Incubator, OCI, and it's really supporting the next generation of developers, hackers, builders on EDU chain. This is our first run, so we're still learning about things for the first time. But I would say that with, right now we have about 4,000 signups from developers in India, Turkey, Southeast Asia, with about 150 great projects that we're excited to incubate. If you're interested in building with us, have that conversation, and we're very open to be working with you and financing as well. There's grants of up to 100,000, worth in EDU. So if you're interested in building in education or developing and co-creating with us, come our way. We'd love to have a conversation.
We have a video clip about this.
Wow. So when is this starting?
In a month. So we actually finish the hackathon submissions in a week and a half. But we're going to be running 3 semesters over the next 12 months. And, Karen, you mentioned earlier, the space is so small. I would like to think that new entrants and new builders, if you're intentional, if you show up, that's 90% of the game to get involved in the space. So, and I think even seeing how you guys have evolved in the space, it's incredible to see, what's going to look like the next 12, 24, 48 months moving forward.
Exactly. Anybody's game. If you're into this, if you're just listening and you're not in Web3, please, maybe this is an opportunity. I don't know. Like, maybe there's someone out there.
Will, are all the applications are education based, or are they just Web3 based?
So it's going to be an education spin. But we're actually looking at a few different verticals right now. One is in gaming, so gaming education, and the other is in AI education. So I think that allows us to, expand the scope, but also open to fresh ideas. Maybe we can open up more verticals as well.
Meme education.
Meme
education. There we go. There we go.
The ultimate entertainment on the internet.
Everybody would sign up for that.
I have a PhD in memes. Yeah. So this is coming down to the last question, which is your prediction. What is the future of the education industry? Is it going to, more evolved into that sort of KnowledgeFi space, or like what is it going to happen?
Yeah, and how are these other players that exist today? Are they going to get into Web3? The Coursera's, Skillshares, those kind of companies, they're doing very well. I see a lot of advertising from them, but I don't see a lot of adoption of Web3.
I think the closest, answer to this is really looking at other industry comparables. So I mentioned earlier, healthcare and education has taken the longest time to change because of the rigidity, because of the bureaucracy, because of the hierarchy, the ivory towers and whatnot. But if you look at like the banking sector, for example, you have all these new challenger banks like Aspire, like tools like Spenmo that allow you to, support this next generation of worker or next generation of company. We see the same thing with education now. So, even the past 12 months, we've done so many collabs with projects that are educating the market on the future of X. Kit Protocol, for example, is one of those players, right? And it's really thinking about how do you support them build 100-year-old brands. Harvard took 400 years. How may we crack that in 4? And so, at Open Campus, it's really trying to support these brands to succeed, but also take a crack at, carving out the certain verticals or horizontals that they're supporting. So I think there's going to be a lot of emerging brands that hopefully we can play a small part in.
Great. Good stuff.
Awesome.
So what is your travel schedule like? Will you be at an event like Token 2049? Do you go to more educational conferences? What is your schedule like on that front?
So I'm in Singapore, so I'll see you guys there. Definitely excited to hit up the parties. We'll be running some side events ourselves, a bit more chill. 2 years ago, I probably did too much conference hopping. And the Herbert in me likes to stay at home and jump on calls or spaces or whatnot. Right. But we'll see each other around. And I think the major events will be, rubbing shoulders and saying hello there.
Awesome.
Asia is where is supposed to be. I think this end of the year, that's where a lot of events happening in Asia. So if you're heading towards Asia in the upcoming months, but please let us know, hit us up. Maybe we can have a coffee or a laksa in Singapore. So thank you so much, Will. Will you, where we can find you on social, if people want to follow you?
Find me on X, hello Wolfan, on the drop down, and obviously follow our work at Open Campus. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm actually pretty easy to get connected with, talk about education, talk about degeneracy. Let's see each other there.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Don't
Will.
forget to follow us on GM Show Official, Memeland, Stakeland, and our co-host. We'll see you again next week.